mean, it's been a tough year, full of grief and sadness for many, many, many people. But 45 years ago today, I had a wake-up call. I was heading for disaster. I was drinking myself to death. I'm not preachy, but I got a message, a little thought that said, do you want to live or die? And I said, I want to live. And suddenly the relief came, and my life has been amazing. And I have my off days and sometimes little bits of doubt and all that. But all in all, I say, hang in there. Today is the tomorrow you were so worried about yesterday. You young people, don't give up. Just keep in there. Just keep fighting. Be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid. And that sustained me through my life. And that's all I've got to say. And Happy New Year. This is going to be the best year. Thank you.
There are things that I would love to go back and change. I have regrets. I made plenty of mistakes, some big, some small. I wish I could go back time and change all kinds of things, but I can't.
To keep it simple, we use for one or two reasons. So to either start feeling something or to stop feeling something.
Alcohol consumption, even in the low amounts, causes harm to the entire body.
Recall in high school, the motivational speakers would come to my school and say, don't do drugs. But absent from those talks was any reference to alcohol.
Most of the things that we do that are addictions are to numb out our anxiety, to numb out our pain, to numb out the memories of trauma, to numb out our discomfort around being with people in a social situation, the fear that I won't have fun, I won't be interesting, I'm more relaxed, I'm more fun, and that's the big myth, is I won't have a fun life.
An estimated 23 million Americans struggle with a substance use disorder, and the average American is more likely to die from an overdose than a motor vehicle accident, a mass shooting, and a terrorist attack combined. So many of us get a loved one plugged into formal treatment and we think, now they're going to be fixed. Only to find out that 40 to 60% of people coming out of formal treatment will relapse within the first year. Why is that? I think we can't talk about healing from addiction unless we also talk about healing from trauma.
Western cultures, alcohol is the most harmful drug overall because it's the most harmful drug to society, because it's the most widely used drug.
Your risks start to increase at 1 standard drink per week.
Even just 7 glasses of wine across the week, there is going to be some degeneration of your brain in response to that alcohol intake.
You do stupid things when you're drunk. You hurt yourself. You compromise your health. It's really hard on the people around you. You tend to turn into a liar, and it screws up your life.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but it's pretty fun. Yeah, well, it is. But you need something better than that. And what's better isn't being straight and not making mistakes. It's like that's all prohibition in some sense. What's better is, no, you need an adventure, man. You need to get out there and have something to do and something worth waking up for. And that's the substitute for the addiction.
Actually, I asked Mel to present this award to me for a reason, because when I couldn't get sober, he told me not to give up hope, and he urged me to find my faith. Didn't have to be his or anyone else's as long as it was rooted in forgiveness. And I couldn't get hired, so he cast me in the lead of a movie that was actually developed for him, and he kept a roof over my head, and he kept food on the table. And most importantly, he said that if I accepted responsibility for my wrongdoings, and if I embraced that part of my soul that was ugly, hugging the cactus, he calls it, he said that if I hugged the cactus long enough, I'd become a man of some humility, and that my life would take on a new meaning. And I did, and it worked. All he asked in return was that someday I help the next guy in some small way. It's reasonable to assume that at the time he didn't imagine the next guy would be him.
The really sad statistic is that only 10% of people suffering from an alcohol use disorder seek treatment. Out of those 10% of the people, only 1 will have any form of long-term success.
Because alcohol is normalized in our society. It is everywhere. It is ingrained. It's the social glue that sticks everything together. From baby showers, christenings, Freshers' Week, weddings, parties, funerals, barbecues, celebrations, commiserations, and everything in between.
So many years that like the narrative was for me is this has a hold over you. You will never break this cycle. You are a prisoner of your own weakness.
And that means 90% of people who are suffering right now aren't going to seek treatment. And you know why they're not going to seek treatment? It's because they've been told that all they can do is quit and go to meetings for the rest of their life.
Over 3 million people worldwide will die this year to alcohol-related causes.
I was in a very dark place in my life. They say that depression comes from the inability to construct the future in your mind. I couldn't see the future. I didn't know who I was supposed to be. We talk a lot about who do you want to be, what do you want to do, alignment is happiness, if you saw some of my other episodes, but I didn't have that. I was wanting to be a certain person, but making all the wrong decisions. And a lot of those decisions were affecting me not only at work, in my personal life, overall as an individual. And I was losing so much valuable time doing things that didn't serve me. And I made a lot of mistakes. You know, when it comes to alcohol itself, which is something that I was struggling with at the time, it went slowly from being a work hard, play hard, have a drink, to 2 drinks, to 3 drinks, to then a habit, to then a daily habit, to then a 24/7 habit, to then a every weekend habit, getting lost in myself habit. Sometimes if you don't watch the kind of habits that you're building, they become lifestyles. And not every lifestyle leads to roads of riches and benefits and incentives and a great life.
Alcohol is indiscriminate in terms of which brain areas it goes to. Again, it doesn't bind to particular receptors, but it does seem to have a propensity or an affinity for particular brain areas that are involved in certain kinds of thinking and behavior. So one of the first things that happens is that there's a slight, at least after the first drink or second drink, there's a slight suppression in the activity of neurons in the prefrontal cortex. This is an area of your neocortex that's involved in thinking and planning, and perhaps above all, in suppression of impulsive behavior.
Yeah, well, alcohol is an extraordinarily pernicious drug, and if you're inclined towards it, you can be inclined towards it because you're sensitive to its anxiety-reducing properties, or you can be sensitive to it because it enhances social communication, or because it produces a psychomotor high like cocaine, or all of those at once. And if you're particularly predisposed to alcoholism, you can experience all 3 at once.
This is really important. People who drink a bit, and when I say a bit, I don't mean 1 or 2 sips or even a glass of wine every once in a while. I mean, again, people that are maybe having 1 drink a night with dinner and maybe on the weekend a few more. Again, I offer a bunch of different patterns to explain how it could also be 2 or 3 drinks on Friday or 6 drinks only on Saturday. Well, all of those groups experience increases in cortisol release from their adrenal glands when they are not drinking. And as a consequence, they feel more stressed and more anxiety when they aren't drinking.
Some lifestyles lead to very dark paths, depression, anxiety, stress, and if not controlled, can also lead to some of the worst case scenarios out there in life. One of them being never reaching your capacity, never really having an identity or a self-worth, losing all integrity, all dignity, and losing yourself.
So when people drink, no matter who you are, initially there's that shutting down of those prefrontal cortical circuits. There's a gradual shutting down of the circuits that control memory. But then people divide into these 2 bins. And these 2 bins are the people who, after more than a couple of drinks, start to feel sedated, and the people who, after more than a few drinks, do not start to feel sedated.
I don't know what happened. I was at a point in my life where it was like, this has got to stop, because my hangovers were getting so ridiculous and debilitating for a whole day. And I was just doing, I would black out from like 2 drinks because my mind, John Mulaney has a great joke about it where he says he would black out very quickly after a couple drinks because his mind was like, we know where this is going, shutting down early. Like, if you know you're gonna black out, your brain just blacks out earlier.
Right.
I went through this book, I read it. You can drink while you read the book. You have to want to quit to pick up the book, you have to want to be like, I want this out of my life. I don't know how to get it out of my life. And I gave this book to so many of my friends, and my friends don't drink anymore. And a lot of them, use program or other things to supplement, but all I needed was this book and I was done. And I'll tell you, I drank every single night of my life, and I never thought I could live without it.
What was the book?
The Easy Way to Stop Drinking by Alan Carr.
What's the easy way?
Easy way is you read this book and then you're done at the end of it. And what he does, I used his method to stop smoking. The Easy Way to Stop Smoking by Alan Carr. So many people have read it. It's the one book that when you've tried everything else, nothing else works. This book, my mom quit smoking after 35 plus years.
If you stop drinking for 30 days, just cut back, and what they're finding is people are living longer. That's clearing out their kidneys. Arterial sclerosis is being reversed. People are having all kinds of more energy. They're losing weight.
Every success that I had had in my life was a result of my self-will. Why won't my self-will solve this problem? And that hole got deeper and deeper and deeper until I was a completely broken human being. And I had to raise my hand and ask for help for the first time. And that forced me to start to think about letting go and surrender in a new way. And I've come to believe and understand that surrender is a very powerful, courageous thing to do. It's okay to say you don't know. It's okay to ask for help. I had to let go of this operating system and step into a sense that perhaps there's a better way, a greater way that involves me saying, I can't control this, which was terrifying for me. But it is in that process that I allowed people to help me, that I became open to a new way of approaching my life that has made me stronger, more powerful, more capable, and more successful than I ever thought that I ever would be.
I got sober when I was younger, when I in 2001, which I now look at as a sort of a JV version of what really the problem is. I was sober for a couple of years, and then I thought, I want to just drink like a normal person, and I want to have wine at dinner and so on. And I was able to. I was able to for about 8 years.
But he says he learned that sooner or later your vulnerabilities can find you.
I started to drink more and more and more, and it was really hard for me to accept that meant I was an alcoholic. I was like, I can just go back. I was fine before. I just need to take a break. I just need to slow down. I'm okay. You know what I mean? This isn't me. And I started drinking every day. And I come home from work and I start to drink, and I just sit there and drink until I pass out on the couch. I really don't want my children to pay for my sins.
Or to be afraid for you.
Or to be afraid for me, which is one of the hard parts of being the child of an alcoholic. Do you think, what if my dad gets drunk? What if he does something stupid? What if he ends up on TMZ? And it's on my news feed and other kids see
Did you watch the TMZ? Did you watch the
I didn't. I saw a little bit. I saw a little bit of it. So yes, I guess I did watch some of it, although not the whole thing. I know what it looks like to be drunk. I don't need to watch anymore.
Alcohol is a really bad drug. 50% of murders take place in an alcohol-fueled environment. Either the victim or the perpetrator or both is drunk. It's almost the sole cause of domestic abuse. It's almost the sole cause of so-called date rape. If you dig into criminal behavior deeply enough, well, hell, you don't have to dig much at all before you find alcohol. It's also the only drug we know that actually makes people more aggressive. If I go out and watch people drinking, it makes everybody stupid and fuzzy-minded. And, the problem is when you're drinking, you think you're cool, but, you have those same delusions that Homer Simpson's friend Barney had when he was drinking, that you're this kind of, elegant and sophisticated comedian, and it just makes everybody stupid.
I would argue that the real problem is that it does that.
Do. I mean, it was awful. It's that awful thing that you hear every alcoholic talk about. And if they don't talk about it, they're lying. Like, you just become an awful human being. Like, you just, you're selfish.
Ultimately, it was my own decision. Like, I woke up one morning after a night going like, this is probably not good. And I don't miss it generally, like, now at all. Like, I really, and I know, and that varies for some people really still do, and some people, like, don't. And when I think of, like, the sort of chaos I used to invite into my life, I'm like, I'm really much happier now.
believe the cliches because they're cliches for a reason. One day at a time, that's all I've got. If at any time I felt like drinking, I put it off for an hour or make myself call somebody. It never happened yet, but you're one day at a time. You're only sober one day at a time.
Some roads lead to death. They lead to struggle, anxiety, depression, and all of the opposite things that somebody wants for their life. And I was there. Before I knew it, I was digging myself a hole. And everywhere I looked, it was so dark. And I lost myself. I spiraled into a sense of no self-worth. And I struggled a lot, and nobody knew.
I am a person in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder. And what that means is I haven't smoked crack, snorted a line of cocaine, or touched a sip of alcohol in over 19 years. I had my first beer at 11. One of my cousins gave it to me. I had my first line of coke at 15. I had just gotten out of a psych ward for being suicidal. From 15 to 24, I drank and used my way through life and eventually ended up in Boston. At that point, my addiction had gotten so bad that I was paranoid and afraid of everything. I found myself locked in my apartment, and there in the dark, huddled on the bathroom floor, I had been using cocaine for almost 24 hours straight. My heart was pounding, and it felt like it was going to explode in my chest. I knew that's how I was going to die. And when the sun rose on Boston that morning, do you know what I thought of? I thought of my mom. I thought somebody is going to have to tell her that her son died on a bathroom floor from a cocaine overdose. And that's the last night I used.
And again, the right people around you, the right environment, and the right things you're reading and watching allow for that healing to take place. And when it does, it feels better. You can do better. You act better. And everything gets better.